Okay, the podcast, the IPCA needed to state the obvious, didn't they? They did a good job, but the way they handled Jevon McSkimming's appalling behaviour, his criminal behaviour, amounted to corruption and a cover-up. That's what the IPCA should have said. It's the only thing missing in the report, which is a good report. It was corruption. It means there must be consequences and compensation paid to the woman who went on to complain, only to be cruelly arrested. 38 times she complained and she was arrested for blowing the whistle. But taxpayers shouldn't have to foot the bill. Those two men, Costa and McSkimmings, they should pay it. It's called the responsibility of office. And Costa must never see a public service wage ever again. He should not be let back in. I don't think he will be. Let's go.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, proudly sponsored by the Brothers Green. Unlock the innate power of New Zealand botanicals to support your mobility. Try the Brothers Green New Zealand Move Joint Support Tonic and join over 20,000 other Kiwis experiencing easier movement. For as little as $1 a day, you too can experience the power of New Zealand hemp seed oil for your joint health. Head to brothersgreen.co and use code DG20 at the checkout for 20% off your first order. It's a good one. Always read the label. Take as directed. Supplementary, of course, to a balanced diet. The Brothers Green, Christchurch. G'day, good evening, welcome to the podcast. I'm Duncan Garner. Nice to have your company, and please subscribe. Text my name, Duncan, to 3598. I do thank you, all those latest people who have subscribed. Thank you so much. Appreciate you getting on board. $7.99 a month, that's all it is. And you get all the extra content, which comes out tomorrow, actually. And all you got to do is pay $7.99 a month, and it helps keep us here. Team Duncan, you're part of the movement. You're part of the huge movement that's taking place right now in the media. $7.99, it's the price of, half a beer at a swanky pub? And if you text my name, Duncan, to 3598, I'll send you the link and you jump on board, and I appreciate it. You are part of the solution in the media. That's right. I had no idea that the police top brass was so shonky. This report, I just can't stop reading it. It is appalling. And I'm reading from this report. It is so detailed and so appalling in what they found. Shonky, corrupt cover-up. Now it needs consequences and it needs compensation paid. They have to pay the woman who sent 38 emails about McSkimming, and they arrested and charged her instead of listening to her complaints. How's that? No, this is not Africa. This is not Italy. This is not the mafia. This is not South America. This is not Mexico. This is New Zealand. McSkimming was an entitled, born-to-rule, deluded idiot who thought he could have his way. And it was a scandalous affair that he had. And he ran the police department at the same time. This guy, McSkimming, was next in line to be the police commissioner. So he didn't want any of his private life getting in the way of it. So the police looked the other way. Instead, he was always going to get caught and hung by his own petard. It was only a matter of time, but the police investigation into him fell well short and didn't exist. Thank God there were a number of cops that were straight and that were good. His seniors, though, the top brass, they looked the other way. And they made excuses for him, including Andy Costa. They didn't want anything to get in the way of his chances of his career advancement and possible appointment as the head of the New Zealand Police. It is shocking. It is so corrupt. He must go down, and he must do jail time, in my view, McSkimming. And Costa, well, he has to lose his job. He's at home now. He has to lose his job. And if possible, look to lay charges there too. Why not? It's called accountability and transparency. Let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
So police have been neck deep in a cover-up, in my view. Our top police officers. Andrew Costa, he was the police commissioner. He looked the other way. He's left the building now, permanently. And New Zealand can finally exhale. No gardening leave. He's been sent home. They are reviewing the options under an employment deal, but you do not have to watch this space. He won't be back, ever. And thank God for that. The experiment with him was a mistake. He was Jacinda's appointment. This government never liked him. He was a Jacinda Ardern appointment, and the government will have no problem in relaying the message that don't come Monday. They will go through the process of a review, but Andy Costa's $600,000 a year job is over. McSkimming was also a Labour Party appointment, a Hipkins appointment. They couldn't get it right, could they? No wonder National was finding it easy to lay out the story to the New Zealand public. These were not their men. And no wonder he's behind the push for major changes now, Hipkins. He's, yes, sir, what do we need to do here? Of course he is. He should be embarrassed. He should be embarrassed. It was a disgrace. And let's stop pretending this was some kind of graceful exit for Costa. It wasn't. Costa should be hanging his head in shame. He's been sent home on leave. he will still be on full pay, that it will fast come to an end. Mr. Be Kind was actually Mr. Look the Other Way. Ignore the complainant. Don't tell the government what one of his men had been up to. What a cover-up. Arrest him for covering it up. Arrest him for covering up a crime. He's no longer commissioner. We know that. National moved him out when they got into office. But he's still on the same pay of $600,000 a year. $35,000 a month for lying for New Zealand, for lying to New Zealand, for lying to New Zealanders. This was the end of a commissioner who lost the country, lost the confidence and lost the plot, and whose return would have sparked a nationwide collective groan. So they pushed him sideways. It wasn't a sabbatical. It wasn't even a break. It was removal by reality, but he still kept a job on the same money. But you don't get to sit in the top job if you fail to lead, you fail to act, and you fail to front. And you don't waltz back in like the prodigal son, because he's not. Not this time. New Zealand's not that forgiving, and this government certainly isn't. Under Costa, he got deep and deep into this corrupt area, in my view. Let's say it plainly. His policing career at the top was already finished. Now his make-believe job on the same pay is over too, in my view. He's been sent home and he won't be back. Judith Collins will enjoy telling him that. There is no second act waiting in the wings. No comeback stronger. There's no hero's redemption. He's stuffed up. And he'll be lucky, even though the report says that he did nothing criminal. I don't know. And I wonder if the report could have been stronger than that. The police should look into this. So the door is closed for him coming back into the public service. In fact, it's been welded shut. When a commissioner loses public trust, that's it. He was on the same pay as a commissioner. There will be no appeals from him. There'll be no rebrand. There'll be no comeback tour. His public service career is over. A former top cop, you don't get to do a second chance. You either get it right the first time or you step aside permanently. This will be a permanent exit. He's gone for good. The public verdict is in. We know what the public is saying. Kiwis have had enough of this sort of soft handling, the cautious non-decision approach, the endless processes that solve nothing, and the biggest cover-up in our police history. The country lost faith in him a long time ago, and you can't police a nation that doesn't believe you can police. In fact, not only can you not police, you were corrupt in your cover-up. Standing down hasn't saved his reputation. It simply reminded us that he was no good, and it's highlighted it. So the rebuild will begin in the coming weeks without Costa and without many of the top brass who have already gone. We need to name them. No, none of this police A, police B, police C. Name those who covered it up. Name those who are part of this corruption. And I have faith in Richard Chambers, the new police commissioner, to do the job. He's walked into an office now, into a trust deficit the size of the Cook Strait. And let's be fair, they're going to be cleaning up someone else's mess for some time to come. But at least they'll start fresh because, well, they were all so corrupt. They had to start afresh. Most of them are gone. There's only 2 police officers left with question marks around their involvement in this. But for those that have left and run, we've got to name them, and I think we should look at charging them if we can. There must be consequences. You can't go on and bang on about integrity and standards if you're not going to uphold them. You can't go on about integrity and standards if you don't look at the corruption and say, we're charging you for that. These guys now have baggage. And there's lingering doubts now about the police. It's lurking over police national headquarters right now. Costa's era is over. Now what remains is the accountability of this troubled criminal era, because that's what it is, a criminal era. Take them to court. The public wants to see accountability. We do not want cops crawling all over us during COVID and then at the same time doing this with themselves. These guys are busy covering up crimes at the same time as coming down heavy on us. To hell with them. They have lost my trust, and I suspect many others feel the same way. So grab the popcorn, folks. The accountability bit awaits. This was nothing short of corruption and a cover-up. So that they now must have consequences and compensation. As simple as that.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, changing topic now, and Max Rashbrooke runs an economic think tank, and he says it's time, well past time, that KiwiSaver, for kids anyway, was made compulsory. It's never been compulsory. There's an opt-out clause, of course. It must be compulsory, he says, and they must return to some incentives. Saving is a good thing, but we don't do enough of it. The Australians, of course, are trillions of dollars ahead of us, and I think Max Rashbrooke makes some common sense here. If you're not going to do it yourself, then have it forced upon you. You must save. Because if we don't save, if some parts of the country don't save, then there'll be 2 or 3 tiered New Zealand in the years ahead. So we've got to start saving. It's good for us. Even though you might think it's painful at the time, it is good for us. It compounds, and it will mean there are trillions of dollars there into the future. We stuffed this up in the 70s with Muldoon. Let's not do it again. Max has done some research into this and has a few recommendations. He's with us now. Max, g'day.
Hey, nice to be here.
Hey, so KiwiSaver, you've been doing a lot of work around here. Good research. It makes real sense, but getting politicians to agree to, common sense seems increasingly harder. What's your proposal at heart? What's the guts?
Oh, so look, I guess the guts of it is that we know we're not saving enough as a country, not saving anywhere near as much as the Australians are. And so we just thought, well, why don't we take something that pretty much everyone loves, KiwiSaver, and build on it, just by trying to get all children enrolled in it at birth and, have a sort of kickstart payment, and then maybe the government matches savings that parents are putting in, and maybe there's a bit of extra help for poorer families. And then the core of it is then you've got those funds accumulating right throughout a child's life. And so then they hit 18, you're building savings, you're building financial literacy, and, giving yourselves options as a country.
It's so multifaceted what you've come up with, because once people see their own money growing, they become suddenly interested in money and, how it works for them and what it means and what options it does. And, just that one tool alone, KiwiSaver, can just change lives in so many ways. I believe it's a no-brainer, but you've got to incentivize it to get people to come on board, right? So this is what you've come up with. You need to do a kickstart again, which was taken away a few years back.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, so if you're saying to parents, look, get your kids enrolled in KiwiSaver, and we can sort of do it automatically, make it opt-in, basically. And then say, look, if you do it, then there's $1,000 in the account, for instance, straight away. I mean, it could be a different sum, but that's what it was originally in KiwiSaver, $1,000. And then if you put in something like a couple of $100 a year, the government will match that. That's a real incentive, I think, for parents to be saving. And it might not sound like much, a couple of $100 a year, a few dollars a week, but it builds up. You're earning interest, you're getting returns from the stock market investments. And so you could have kids hitting 18 with pretty sizable amounts in those accounts, and us as a country saving significantly more. So yeah, I mean, to me, it's just a really pragmatic way to try to deal with some of those savings issues we have as a country.
It's so easy for a politician to come up with something like this. Yet the Nats especially seem, it's Labour's tool, of course, but the National Party's agreed with it and gone with it. They've changed it a bit. But they seem to be so against a sort of an organised national savings scheme like this. I don't know why.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the budget obviously, took some money away from adult KiwiSaver in terms of halving the government annual contribution, but they did also make it available to 16 and 17-year-olds, and then obviously tried to trim a bit off the top by making it not available to people who earn over 180K. So you can see there's still a commitment there to it, but they're just trying to make it a bit more targeted, I guess. And then you've got the discussion about should KiwiSaver be compulsory as well. And that's a discussion I'm open to. My view on that is just, if we were going to make KiwiSaver compulsory, it's all the more important to make sure that everyone is starting off on their adult savings journey on some kind of roughly level playing field,
I think it makes sense to. I mean, if it's not compulsory, then you set up 2 New Zealands or 3 New Zealands, and it just, the Australian one works. It's compulsory. Everyone's involved in it. They know what it's worth. They know why they do it. I wonder what we're questioning. Why do we have this sort of self-doubt about a savings scheme? Savings equals good. Let's do it. Good public good, private good. It's all there.
Well, I mean, look, Duncan, you know the history probably better than I do. I mean, there was a proposal of something like this in the 70s, and then Muldoon scrapped it, and we're sort of still dealing with those consequences. I also think that, look, we're an amazing country, but we're not always the best at taking long-reaching decisions. We don't always want to take that short-term pain for long-term gain. But yeah, you look at what the Australians have done, $2.5 trillion they've got in their superannuation schemes. That creates all sorts of funds to do, a huge number of things, and they're investing all around the world, but they're also investing in things in Australia, and so they're helping do that kind of nation-building work as well. Yeah,
but you've seen KiwiSaver funds over here do that too. Sam Stubbs with Simplicity, and I'm really impressed with what they do. They are investing in rent houses so that you can rent them. They will be owned by the KiwiSaver investors. Now, that's good. It's a really good use. Might be good return. There's also a thing about, it's building for New Zealand. So they're building infrastructure for New Zealand. Really impressive. And so you'd see perhaps more of that sort of thing too if you had more funds available, more money available.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think if you had kids' KiwiSaver accounts, obviously you'd still want plenty of it invested overseas because you don't want to be too exposed to New Zealand in case there's a downturn or whatever. But yeah, absolutely. You'd be increasing money that's available, deepening those pools of capital to invest in things in New Zealand. And you're absolutely right. The stuff that Sam Stubbs says, if you've got things like build to rent housing, that's a long-term investment. And you want that matched with funds that's there for the long term. And that's what KiwiSaver does.
Do you think it needs to be taken out as a political football? The way there's not much more to take off it, to be honest. There's the last $250 dollar bonus that you get, during the year, that tax credit. I mean, that's all that's pretty much left on it as a bonus. Is there enough incentives on this thing now for people to sign up or not?
Well, look, I mean, I think what there is an agreement that KiwiSaver is a really great idea. I think the question is about how much that is done through government incentives, or are we moving towards more compulsion where you just have to save and sort of the government's not sort of really topping it up hugely? I mean, I think what we're sort of not getting, stuck right into that debate with this proposal. I guess what we're saying is that what we would like to see is all political parties interested in the idea of kids KiwiSaver in some shape or form. And what we've done in the report is we've said, look, here's a whole bunch of different ways you could do kids KiwiSaver. So you could, have sort of pretty minimal top up and minimal incentives and just sort of mostly let families get on with it. Or you could have a big kickstart. You could match quite a lot of savings from parents. You could provide extra support to the poorest families so that their children don't miss out. We'd like to think that there'd be quite widespread take up of that because it is sort of pragmatic. It's building on KiwiSaver that's already there. We've costed it out, and the first year cost to government would be probably somewhere just in the realm of sort of $20 million, maybe $80 million, which isn't nothing, but in the scheme of what the government spends every year, it's not a huge amount.
No.
And we think that's got widespread appeal.
I think compulsion's. I mean, I personally think. I know that a lot of people don't like compulsion in anything, but sometimes compulsion is. We have to brush our teeth, and it's usually compulsory in most houses, although not always followed. But compulsion savings in a scheme like this, with the way you've designed it, it just makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, you'd be hard pushed to get people to disagree with it.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think you got to sort of distinguish the two elements. Kids KiwiSaver would be up to parents to sign their kids up for it, although I would expect that 99% of parents would, because, why wouldn't you?
They'll take the money.
And I think that would be particularly important if KiwiSaver becomes compulsory for adults. Look, I mean, I get your argument. There's a lot to be said for it, and it forces us to be long-sighted. But the issue is that people, let's say it's compulsory that you save 4% of your salary into KiwiSaver. Well, people will be saving 4% of very, very different amounts. That means a totally different thing to someone on the minimum wage to someone who's a, corporate executive. So just making KiwiSaver compulsory does risk taking those inequalities in working life and then sort of baking them in retirement. So I think, again, I'd say it's particularly important to have something like kids KiwiSaver where you're making sure that everyone's got something behind them at 18.
Yeah.
And they're starting that adult savings journey on a reasonably sort of even footing.
Look, it's also you can hark back to the days, and I remember signing up with ASB as a young fella, and the cash, and you had your book, they printed in there how much you were putting in and saving, and there was a real incentive. There was a really, we saw it. You saw it exploding. You saw interest come in. So, and that was good for financial literacy for us as well as young kids, because we'd ask questions about it, and I think that's been lost a bit.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I'm also old enough to remember that, those the post office savings accounts, and I remember sort of toddling my way down and depositing my $1.50 a week or whatever it was. And I mean, some of the people I've talked to have pointed out that those savings accounts weren't great because they only accumulated at 3% a year or something. Whereas I think with Kids KiwiSaver, you'd hope for at least twice that.
Yes.
But yeah, it was a thing I really remember. It was a great feeling. And I think if you did like, Kids KiwiSaver, the other thing that I think would be great about it is you could weave it right into the high school curriculum, because with the government, a current government saying that they want financial education to be compulsory in schools, well, that's great, but let's give kids something tangible to actually do that financial education about. I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I do too. And it's long overdue. Where's the money coming from for these sorts of incentives? Because we're told every day the government's got no money. So you'd have to take it from somewhere. So it would be borrowing to save. Well, that's an argument that could be made. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, well, like I said, we've costed it out, and sort of the way you'd probably do it, a first year cost to government is somewhere between 20 and 80 million, and obviously that increases over time. Look, so one option would be to take a bit of the money out of adult KiwiSaver by focusing it a bit better. So, I mean, you've got to the point where the contribution for adults at the moment, the government have cut it down to $260 a year.
What's the point?
Which, I mean, at that point, exactly. So I think you could rework that. It's still about $600 million a year by my calculations that the government's spending on adult KiwiSaver. So you could take that, you could rethink it, you could probably focus it on the people who need it most. And in doing that, save $80 million along the way and just put that straight into the kids version.
It adds up, doesn't it? I mean, when you talk about it like that, $600 million is not a cheap policy. I mean, that's getting up there in terms of, a significant policy from the government. It may only be a few dollars here and there, but it actually, because there are 3 million New Zealanders in it, it adds up really quick, right?
Oh, yeah, it does. And then I guess the flip side, the nice flip side of that is, like I said, if you put some of that money into Kids KiwiSaver, you get people saving early, that accumulates, you take advantage of the stock market and interest and all the rest of it, and then suddenly you've got kids hitting 18 with $10,000, $20,000 in their KiwiSaver accounts.
Under your scheme, would they take it out for a house?
Yeah, so there's different ways you can do it, but probably the simplest and cleanest thing would just be, at 18, the accounts that have been building up in the children's name, they just roll over into adult KiwiSaver accounts.
Yep.
The kids get control of them at 18. But yeah, it's the classic two KiwiSaver uses, retirement savings and house deposit. And one of the things we did in the report is we just sort of said, well, if you've got someone, they might even be from a benefit household, but if they've hit 18 with, 15, 20K in their kids KiwiSaver account, even if they then, just do a trades course, go on to be an electrician or a plumber or something like that,
yes,
earning a pretty typical wage, and then they're saving in their own right through their 20s, they'll hit 30 with a house deposit, and so then that sort of dream of home ownership, you've started to restore that a bit as well,
and effortlessly so as well. It's just they've saved because they signed up early. We tax our savings. This really annoys me. So I get taxed. I get wage or salary paid, and it's taxed, but then it gets taxed again, right?
Yeah. And that is different to how some other countries do it. I guess my hesitation about saying, well, we should take tax off savings is that's going to mean a really, really big tax break for the people who've got the biggest savings, which is already people who are doing well. And when you look at countries overseas that do that, it costs them a huge amount of money. They spend a huge amount of money providing tax breaks to well-off savers. So I'd be nervous about going down that path, I think.
Yeah, it's just that it seems to me that you use tax to raise money, but to punish certain behaviours. And I would have thought we wouldn't want to be punishing a savings regime, because this is a good use of money. It's a good thing to do, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, I do get that argument, and you could, find a way to sort of make life easier, I guess, for people who are saving smaller amounts of money who might otherwise struggle. I mean, in the report, we've looked at a bunch of different ways you could do Kids KiwiSaver, and we have looked at options where the kids version of KiwiSaver wouldn't be taxed, if you want more of those savings building up.
Yeah.
I do just think it's really expensive if you're trying to do that for the adult population as well. And look, everyone loves Australia's saving schemes. We've been talking about it earlier. But you talk to people there, and the one thing that does concern them is they're providing some pretty big tax breaks on the savings of people who are already doing pretty well. And you do think, what's the logic of that?
Well, it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue for it. Max, we'll leave it there. Excellent stuff. Always like your ideas, nice and clear and concise, and that's a good talking point, especially this one. Savings so important. Get in early and change your life, I reckon.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, folks, that is us. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for taking part in the podcast. Remember, you can subscribe. You can text Duncan, my name, to 3598. I'll send you the link. You can sign up, $7.99 a month, and you get all the extra content for that. It's so cheap. And I tell you what, we've had hordes and hordes of people signing up in the last couple of weeks, so it's getting a real mass now and some real momentum. Thank you so much for doing that. You're part of the team, Duncan. You're part of the movement. We're taking on the mass mainstream media, and I think we're showing them up. You can tell me that. Tell me what you think anyway. You can ask me anything, and I'll answer that in a special subscriber edition tomorrow. So you can email me, duncan@rover.nz. Ask me anything. From a policy issue, political thing, or even something about me. You can ask me anything. You're free to go. Go for it. I'll try and answer it. Duncan@rover.nz. Thank you to Lockie, and thank you to Brody, my producers. They do great work. Remember, life's no dress rehearsal. There's no curtain raiser. This is it. We live in one of the best places on earth, despite the corruption at Police National Headquarters, which has been stamped out, and we'll clean it up. But it's shocking. I urge you to read the IPCA report if you have a spare hour or two, because it really is detailed, and it goes to the heart of the worst corruption I've ever seen in the New Zealand Police, and I've covered this stuff for 30 years. Have a great rest of the day, folks. Take care. See you tomorrow.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, sponsored by the Brothers Green. Feed your gut what it needs. Digest Gut Health Protein Powder. I use it myself. It supports natural digestion and gut health. Made with premium Canterbury-grown hemp powder and a unique blend of active kiwifruit enzyme powder and kiwifruit skin extract, offering natural prebiotics and a nutrient-rich profile to complement a balanced lifestyle. Always read the label. Take as directed. Supplementary, of course, to a balanced diet. The Brothers Green, Christchurch.